Hi, I want to go over how to change the brake pads on a Honda ST1100. And this is actually very simple to do. You need a couple screwdrivers and an Allen key set, some anti-seize, and basically what you're going to need to do is right here there is a slotted, what looks like a screw, and this is just nothing more than a cap. So you're going to take a nice good screwdriver that fits that nice and snug, and you're going to break that loose and take it out. All that is a cap that covers this small Allen headed caliper pin here, which should be a 5mm, and it is. Okay, now you want to take your worn out screwdriver and you're going to come in underneath the pad here. And you want a worn out screwdriver so that this tip is nice and flat, kind of sharp, and very carefully slip it between the pad and the rotor and slowly pry this back. And what you're doing is you're compressing the pistons, which there are two on this one, back into the caliper. Okay, so once you compress the pistons back into the caliper, and you may need a slightly bigger screwdriver once you get that pushed back a little bit, and just gently twist. You don't want to damage the rotor. You don't want to pry hard or anything else, because you're actually not prying against the rotor as much as you are prying against the back of the caliper, because the back pad is still fixed there. So through the rotor, the pressure is hitting the back pad. So once that is compressed all the way in, and those pistons are all the way in, you come in here, put your 5mm in here, snap that loose, take your pin out, and there's one pad, and the other one will fall out when you pop that loose. And there's your other one. And as you can see, these pads are very worn out. There's hardly anything left here. They're almost touching the rotor. So I will grab. Okay, so what we have here is we've got the new pads. These are the EBC FA142HH. These are for the non-ABS model. The ABS model ones are about a ½ inch longer right here. So take out your set of pads. Okay. And line them up. Make sure it is the correct pad, and these match up. It's the same ones. And of course, they go in, and you're like, okay, which way? So the pin hole goes back here on both. Now, take the pin out, apply a little bit of anti-seize to it. And then you want to add just a little anti-seize to where it rubs on the rotor, or on the caliper mount, and that just helps it move freely. Put a little bit here, and then I usually add just a little bit on the top where it rubs against the springs. And if you want to keep it quiet, you can add a little anti-seize on the back, and this will allow that not to make so much chattering noises while you're driving. So put a little anti-seize on the back. And Harley Davidson has a very nice anti-seize that they use just for this. You don't want much, you just want a very, very thin film. Put a little bit on there, a little there. We already got the caliper done. Now we take the Slide the brake pad up into the slot. Put the pin in just far enough to hold the first brake pad. You have to lift up a little bit because there's a spring in there. Take the next brake pad, line it up, slide it up between the caliper mount, and it's going to fit a lot more snug. Push that through, tighten this up. Okay, and then you want to put your little cap back in. Snug that in, and there you go. Now pump up your brakes. That takes up the fluid, because what you just did is you push all this fluid back up into your master cylinder up there. And once you do that, it's full. So if you do the second caliper, you will overflow it and the fluid will come squirting out. So I'm going to do this side again. Now that you've already seen how it's done. Okay, so take your screwdriver with a good edge, put it in there, take off the plug. Take the plug out, and then take your screwdriver, your worn out screwdriver, slide it up underneath, get between the rotor and the pad, and just slowly twist. Slowly twist. So you can see I'm twisting the screwdriver lightly. Once it does that, then you can put the slightly bigger screwdriver in there, and you're going to compress it until the piston moves all the way back in. Alright, I've moved the piston all the way back in. Take out the 5mm bolt. There are my two pads. Put the anti-seize on this. The anti-seize basically helps keep the pin from wearing out as it vibrates going down the road with the metal-to-metal contact. Open your new set of pads. And of course, as you saw, I use a towel and wipe off the anti-seize off your hands. You don't want to get it on the pads, but really there's a lot of contaminants on the pads and it's not going to make that big of a difference, but try not to get anything on there. If you do, wipe it off. If you get a lot on there, use carb cleaner. So put a little bit on the back. This helps these float as well on the piston of the caliper. Put just a very, very thin coating there. Put a little bit here on each ear. A little bit on the top where the spring rides. And then, same thing as before, slide the outside one in first until it lines up. Put the pad in, or put the pin in. Give it a little push. Okay. Wipe off your hands. Start with the second one, and you're going to get some anti-seize on your finger, so just wipe it off when that happens. Push the caliper in if it doesn't want to slide in very easy. Once that's in, give that a push. Now that's all the way in. Screw the caliper pin back in. Firm it up. And put your cap back on. And there you go. And then come back over here, pump up the brakes. And don't go full pump, go half pumps when you pump up the brake. And make sure it's nice and firm. And that's it. So we just took out a pair of old pads that were all worn out. And we replaced them with nice, shiny, new EBC sintered brake pads. The part number is FA142HH. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope this helps you out. Thanks.